My name is Brian Berthoud, and this is the final case study presentation for class PM 514, Missional Churches and Leadership at Fuller Theological Seminary, and today's date is March 7th. During this video and further presentation, the practical theology method is going to be used, integrated, and analyzed in relation to my own culture, context, and how I am applying these methods. Now, there are 5 steps in this process: my current praxis, culture and context, various Christian texts, practices, my stories, and then further imagination and experiments. So this presentation will be a reflection on those steps and how I am relating them together. When I began this course and its subsequent engagement of practical theology, I realized that my examined life is both layered with complexity and riddled with missteps. As I take a step back in order to gain a better vantage point of my current praxis, I can see how the last 2 years have radically altered my life's trajectory. I hungered to know more about what was happening in my life once I realized that I was born again of the Spirit. This led me to complete my undergraduate degree in Christian ministries at California Baptist University, along with enrolling into the Master's of Divinity program at Fuller Theological Seminary, where I have been since the fall of 2018. With an ever-broadening perspective of the church, I am beginning to outwardly express what I have been feeling in my heart now for years. While I do experience peace and comfort from the Holy Spirit, there is a growing sense of anguish for the church community as a whole. With this present hurt, I am compelled to no longer be passively attending the local church, but somehow becoming more involved. In the last several months, I've applied to over 50 church communities, ranging from California to Egypt. I thought it would be easy to find a spot within a local community church, perhaps even my own local church. But the Spirit has prevented me from taking any steps in this direction. With the help of this class, I am beginning to see how the Spirit is working in my very own community. The culture of my neighborhood is a unique blend of a small beach community on the outskirts of San Diego that also borders Tijuana, Mexico. There is a strong Mexican influence on the community, in which, according to the United States Census Bureau, 50% of the population is Hispanic. In addition to the cultural dynamics that being a border town presents, which includes the drama of a strong border patrol presence, San Diego serves as the principal port for the Navy's Pacific Fleet. Somehow all of these cultures combine to form a laid-back beach town where hundreds of people every day flock to the beaches to glimpse the ocean. Upon shifting the perspective to the margins of society, San Diego County has one of the most prolific homeless populations in the United States. According to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, San Diego County has the 4th largest homeless population in the country. This information follows suit with the rest of California as being by far the most homeless state in the United States. Depending on your perspective then, San Diego is home to some of the most affluent and diverse cultures in the world, as well as harboring one of the country's worst homeless populations. As I briefly mentioned with my current praxis, there is a significant amount of schooling. As I am in the 2nd quarter of the Divinity program, I am continuously being stretched in ways I never imagined. I am realizing the needs of the people are great, but the laborers are few. During this class, 2 specific Lectio Divina readings have been particularly enlightening. In conjunction with the 70 being sent in Luke chapter 10, Nick Warren's comments that we need to continue to resist the momentum to turn inward and keep focusing outward. Along with Paul's vision of the man from Macedonia in Acts chapter 16, I am being challenged to remain steadfast in a similar pattern of being zealous to go while being prohibited by the Spirit. As I have begun to join the Spirit in the neighborhood, a new world is opening in front of my eyes. Alan Roxburgh's missional Joining God in the Neighborhood has been pivotal within this process. Luke is working with these stories to assist Gentile Christians faced with the crisis of identity to grasp how they might reorient themselves in a new space. That reorientation involves taking on counterintuitive practices and rules for being God's people. Living a life of continuous movement, from action to reflection and to further action, is nothing new to me. My entire life is in a state of close examination in relation to my actions. However, with the propositions from this class, I am in uncharted territory. I tend to be someone who likes a well-thought-out plan, complete with contingency plans. So the prospect of leaving my belongings behind and becoming guests in someone else's home is a stretch of my imagination. As we read about the Exodus, the exile, or the earliest churches, we can place these stories alongside our own in order to reconsider our perceptions, convictions, habits, and imaginations. Once I begin to use the practical theology method to assist in the discernment for the will of God in my life, I found myself sitting down to meals with a local homeless man named Eric. I realized there's a great learning curve ahead of me within the art of conversation because so much of my time is spent online. I have lost a step within face-to-face conversations. During a few meals with Eric, I sensed a powerful alignment with the Spirit of God. The call to the neighborhood is a call to discover what God is already doing and become part of it. As I take steps to further engage the community, there are a couple thoughts at the front of my mind. Keeping in mind the work of the Spirit to prove the world wrong about sin, righteousness, and judgment, along with the ministry of reconciliation that is upon the community, I pray I will be bold in the faith, not seeking my own understanding but the will of God. Since my rough draft of this case study, I have made the trip across the border into Tijuana, Mexico, to visit what a local church is doing there. In a very astounding way, the spirit of the church community is set up right next to the slums, which house over 500 families who are living off the grid. These people have been pushed to the side of the literal road, and the church has been placed in a way to nurture the comfort and peace of the Spirit. Also in the works is an informal meeting with the San Diego Rescue Mission, whose ministry focus is on the homeless in San Diego. Perhaps the Spirit is opening doors for me to further cross socio-economic boundaries within the homeless population. It certainly is an odd and empowering feeling to be desperate for the will of God. I am not responsible for grand plans to change the world. God is already doing that. It is simply a matter of joining God. Thank you for taking the time, and this is my presentation and final case study.